Hello everyone and welcome to yet another episode of the MBL Blitz podcast. I'm your host Spencer Murray and we have a lot on the docket today. First off, I'm going to touch on the first 5 picks in the MBL Season 20 draft and where they are now, how their stats are hanging up, and how they're producing for their teams. Second, I'm going to touch on AJ Stanton there in San Diego and how he took Phillip Rivers' job from before the season even started. I'm also going to touch on some of these teams that were huge players last year in the playoff race, and they seem to be falling off pretty quick, and what can probably change with these teams. I've got the Bears' resurgence of the NFC coming up after that, and then last but not least, I'm going to touch on my playoff predictions and my Super Bowl picks for the year, so stay tuned. First up, we have the top 5 rookies here. Now, these aren't the top 5 in my opinion. These are literally the first 5 rookies that were drafted in the Season 20 draft. As you can see here, from 1 to 5, you have Mark Bullard, Kyle Dell, Trey McIntyre, Julius Way, and Ross Tannehill. Now, some of these guys have been phenomenal, and a few of these guys have yet to make a huge impact on their teams. I'm going to go a little bit in depth on each one here. Mark Bullard, he first overall pick, everyone was kind of shocked. Everyone expected the Browns to take QB Trey McIntyre, which fell to the Chiefs. But so far this year, he's had an all-right year. 11 solo tackles, 2.5 sacks, and a forced fumble. Not really a big year, but he's there. Looking through his stats, his best game was here in Week 3. He had 5 total tackles, 1 solo, a tackle for loss, and a sack. So he's getting it done. The Browns have definitely shown a rejuvenation. They're playing hard. The games are close, and they're looking to be on the right track of growing. Next on the list here, we have Kyle Dell, the crazy freak athlete linebacker that Tampa Bay drafted with number 2 pick. So far through the season, some stats I pulled up. He's got 8 solo tackles, 3 interceptions, when 2 of those are pick sixes, and he's got 3 pass deflections. So now you can see this guy can cover and tackle at the same time. He's had some crazy games. One was recently here in Week 10. He had 2 picks, and one of those went for a 72-yard touchdown, as you can see on those highlights there on the MBL Network. This guy is doing exactly what Tampa Bay wants. Tampa Bay is fighting in all their games. Their offense is kicking. Their defense is doing what it's supposed to do. So, some of these picks look like they're the smart picks. As we move on here to Trey McIntyre with the Kansas City Chiefs, he's got 2,629 yards. He's got 12 touchdowns with 3 rushing touchdowns and 21 interceptions, a 75.6 QBR. Trey McIntyre is struggling. I'm not going to lie to you. The wide receivers don't seem to be on the same page, but they're getting there. He's had some crazy games. One of those was in Week 3 against the Browns, where he threw for 355 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he has some games that he gets sacked really often, and that's still getting him. The O-line is still trying to find ways to block those incoming defensive ends and blitzing linebackers and trying to keep Trey McIntyre upright. Next on the list, I have Julius Way, pick number 4 there for the Tennessee Titans. So far this year, he's got 34 tackles, 4 tackles for losses, 3 interceptions, and 2 of those are defensive touchdowns. This kid, he had one of the fastest 40 times for a cornerback that has probably been seen in the NBL. This guy's got speed. He came out ready to play and ready to produce his rookie year. His best game he's had so far is Week 5. He had 8 tackles. 2 of those were tackles for a loss. He had 1 interception for a touchdown, which went for 56 yards. This kid's definitely playing. The Titans have had some offensive struggles, of course, but their defense is young. They're getting together. They're playing ball, and they're keeping them in the AFC South race. The AFC South is still up for grabs for anybody. Last but not least, we have the Miami Dolphins with the number 5 pick, Ross Tannehill. Now, this guy, he's one of the ones that hasn't really been noticed or been producing because, you have Sue there on the line. So he gets kind of overlooked. So far this year, he's got 13 tackles, 4 of those tackles for losses. He's got a pass deflection and a fumble recovery. Not yet registered a sack on the year, which really isn't a big deal. You want to make sure your guy, it'd be nice for him to get a sack through the middle, but it's really important for a defensive tackle to be able to stop the run up the middle. And it looks like he's done that. He's got in the backfield pretty easily. 4 tackles for losses out of the 13 tackles he has, so that's not bad. His best game that I could find was Week 3. He had 2 tackles and 1 tackle for loss. So maybe once Sue starts to phase out, or if they decide to, give Sue some time to get a breather during a game and let him play, let Tannehill play for a quarter, you might be able to see a little bit more out of him. But until then, Tannehill is one of the top 5 rookies that you probably won't see a lot of production out of for a while. All right, second here I've got on this list is AJ Stanton. He's Stanton tall, pun intended. In San Diego as the rookie QB, making a very big push for Offensive Rookie of the Year in the AFC. Just replaced Rivers at the beginning of the season. No one saw it coming. Rivers has yet to play a snap this year, I believe. Looking at Stanton's stats, as you can see here on this graphic, he's got 10 touchdowns for 8 interceptions, 2,222 yards, and he's got a 100.1 QBR. Now, this kid is doing what you want him to do. Feed Melvin Gordon, let him carry the offense, and Stanton is definitely managing this game and making the smart throws, as you can see. He's I did some small projections. He's projected for 16 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, and just over 3,500 yards. So he's doing his job, playing smart ball. Chargers are still in the race for the AFC West. They've lost a few games here recently, but they're still a dominant team, as you could see in the MBL Live game where they hung on with the Cowboys, who's, in my opinion, the best team in the league right now. So last year, Rivers didn't do so well, and I'm guessing that the front office just decided to not even give Rivers a chance and just throw this rookie in almost off the street. I believe he was undrafted. He's got a huge arm. He doesn't throw the ball deep that often. He tends to stick to the shorter routes, and it works. Like I said, they're leading in the AFC West. They're getting the jobs done. And you got to kind of feel sorry for Phillip Rivers because he's still got a few years left on his contract, and it's a pretty huge hit for the Chargers to get rid of him. So he's probably looking at being a backup for the rest of his career, barring a huge injury to Stanton. Let's take a quick break here. I'm going to remind you guys, if you haven't yet, to hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Also, if you have a Twitter account, you can follow us at Bomber League and at MBL Network. Plenty of content from August to August. We are constantly running on 100% during Madden season, and you will not be disappointed. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Right now I'm going to hit on a few teams that seem to be struggling a little bit this year. They were pretty big players in the playoff race last year, and this year some red flags have been popping up, some big games lost, and I'm just going to touch on a few of these here. Let's start with Cincy. They're usually fighting Pittsburgh for a spot for the AFC North, if not a guaranteed wild card team. And right now they're on a 3-lose. They've lost 3 in a row, and that's huge. The AFC North is Pittsburgh dominated, but with the other talent lacking in the AFC, Cincy always has a clear path to the playoffs. And now it seems like they're going to be dethroned this year, and they've all but thrown in the towel to rebuild. I guess we're just going to have to wait for a while and see what happens the rest of the season. I mean, there's still a few games left, and there's still a possibility they can get in as an 8-8 wildcard team. So we'll just have to wait and see. Seattle, they won the NFC West last year on that great defensive play last year, and this year they're struggling. They're 4-6. NFC West is still up for grabs. The turnovers are huge. Russell Wilson has thrown way too many interceptions, and that's a very bad thing to put yourself behind in those situations. When you have an elite QB like Russell Wilson throwing more interceptions than a rookie like Trey McIntyre, something's got to be changed quick, and they need to figure it out fast before they lose their chance at another playoff and possible Super Bowl run. Next up, I got the Lions. No disrespect to the Lions, but losing Stafford has been a huge disruptance, I guess you could say, in the Lions and how they play. Fitzmagic isn't getting it done, and the Cowboys put a little bit of a hurting on them. So this was the team that almost went undefeated last year and dominated in all aspects of the passing game, and now they're trying to find some semblance of an offense to just keep them coasting until Stafford comes back healthy. And last but not least, we have the Oakland Raiders. They were just in the AFC Championship last year, and this year they have fallen to 3rd in the AFC West standings, and they seem to be having a hard time as they just lost a game to the Bills 40-24. A lot of the coaching staff is looking for answers, and I happened to be there and listened to a press conference from Jack Del Rio, and he had this to say about the issues for the team and how the staff was going to handle it.
I think for us, it's about us. It's a collective effort. We all share in it, And so, no, I'm not going to throw any one person under the bus. It's not any one person that's at fault here. We collectively as a group, we have to pick it up. We have to do our share.
So as you can see, there's really not a collective, or there's not a single person to blame. It's a collective issue. The whole entire staff is working on it, and they're just looking for answers in any way, or for anywhere. They're looking for answers anywhere. Derek Carr is struggling. The defense is struggling, and outside of Khalil Mack, there's no real, guaranteed playmaker on the defense. So Del Rio's he's definitely working toward finding answers. This is a AFC Championship caliber team, and you can't just go from being great one year to falling off one year, especially after not losing any talent, really. You drafted great talent. You've got great talent. There's no reason you should be underperforming from what you were last year. You should be still leading the AFC West and getting it done. I'm going to talk about a team that is skyrocketed to the top of the NFC, and that is the Chicago Bears. Da Bears, they are playing great. They're 12th in total offense and 13th in total defense. They've scored the 5th most points per game in the NBL, and diving into their defense, they've got the 3rd best rushing defense. They've allowed the 4th most points, and they not the 4th most. They're the 4th best defense when it comes to allowing points, and they're the 5th best red zone defense. This team is playing lights out, and it's going to be exciting to see some of these guys just throughout the rest of the year push for better stats, and this defense is coming together as a whole. And in a recent press conference, John Fox was praising these guys, and I'll play this clip here for you so you can see for yourself.
Well, I think it's probably our best team effort so far. I think it was evident that these guys played very hard for each other. We've got a good group that are in that locker room, and there's a lot of reasons for it, but I think our guys were that's what playing for each other looks like.
The coach is happy about his team, and like you just heard it, these guys are playing lights out and they're playing together, and he really likes that. A couple of these guys, the Kaliko Perry, the rookie corner out of Florida State, has been a huge help this year. 20 solo tackles as a cornerback is almost absurd in my opinion. You don't really hear about cornerbacks making tackles. Usually they have help from the safeties, or they usually make plays on the ball. You don't really hear about them hitting and downing the ball carrier, and this guy's doing it all. He's got 5 interceptions, and he's also assisted on 14 other tackles. So that is a great pickup in the draft by the Bears. Definitely something they needed. On the front line, you have Lamar Houston with 5.5 sacks and 12 tackles for losses. This guy gets into the backfield quick, off the line, and disrupts anything going on in the run game. This whole entire team has 70 tackles for losses. They're getting in the backfield, they're getting it done, and they're stopping these quick plays and these runs to the outside. This defense is what's going to hopefully carry them to the NFC Championship, because the Cowboys are the team to beat, and their offense is running on all cylinders with that rushing attack from Ezekiel Elliott. So they're going to need something to stop him from getting between the tackles and outside the tackles, and we're just going to have to wait and see how it all plays out. Lastly, I'm going to hit on the current playoff picture and my predictions for who's going to be where by the end of the season into the playoffs, and who I think is going to be in the Super Bowl matchup and win the whole show. As of right now, you can see here in this graphic that I've made, the Steelers and the Cowboys are the clear-cut front runners for 1 seed. They both have 9 wins, I believe, and there really hasn't been any contenders to step up and beat them. Besides in the NFC, the Chicago Bears are the only other team that I could see maybe dethroning the Cowboys for the number 1 spot. AFC is kind of a jumble. A lot of these teams from the 2nd seed down have a similar record, and it's very hard to determine who I thought was going to be wild card spots and who I thought was going to win the division. Clearly, in my opinion, right where the AFC stands right now is who I think is going to win each division. Steelers for the North, Texans for the South, Chargers for the West, and Patriots for the East. Now, I do believe the Chargers will get back in their groove and move up to that number 2 spot and take the bye week. I I could see maybe the Buffalo Bills squeaking in, but right now, the only other team I could see falling out of the race is the Oakland Raiders, as they're definitely struggling right now, as I just talked about. Over on the NFC side, the Falcons are usually the best bet to win the NFC South. And at the 4 seed, I'm going to have to go with the Seahawks in the West. The West is definitely up for grabs, but I think that the Seahawks have the defensive talent to hold it out and win the remaining games that they need in order to take the lead. The wild cards are a throw up. Bombers definitely guaranteed one, but it's really hard for me to decide between the Eagles and the Redskins. Both teams are playing great right now, and it's going to be a race to see who can keep up and win the most games and squeak into the playoffs there in that last spot. There's not really many teams in the NFC that's pushing besides these 6 teams. I'll give the Panthers. They went on a huge win streak earlier in the season, and they're definitely getting it done. So watch them, and maybe the Green Bay Packers. The NFC North is usually full of talent, but with the Bears and Lions playing like they are now, the Packers are going to have quite a few losses under their belt, and it's kind of going to be hard to get in with, these teams playing at the levels they are right now. That being said, I'm going to go into my Super Bowl picks, and most of you already know that I've chosen the Steelers and the Cowboys in another Super Bowl matchup. And I think the Cowboys actually come through and squeak this one out. They're playing lights out this year, and I think it's going to be kind of hard for the Steelers to keep up with that rushing attack. And I think DK gets it done, and Dallas wins a Super Bowl and upsets. They're having a great year. Bombers usually on top of the NFC, and it's just crazy how these Cowboys are playing. Any other teams, I could maybe see the Bears squeaking in besides Dallas, but it's going to be hard, and there's really no big contenders in the AFC outside of the Chargers that are going to keep the Steelers from winning and going to the Super Bowl. So that's really it for this episode, and thanks for listening as usual. I look forward to the next 2 weeks bringing you guys something else great. Look forward to the Commissioner's Corner podcast, and also stay tuned for any upcoming MBL Live games. Always great commentary by our guys at MBL Network, and a lot of this stuff takes a lot of work. And also, I'd like to give a huge shout out to Outbidness for the graphics that we have. They're great. You do a lot of work for us, buddy, and I really appreciate everything you do. Thanks for listening, guys. Catch you on the next one.